So the Mid-Atlantic Tech Bridge is part of a series of 17 tech bridges as part of the NavalX team, which is part of the Office of Naval Research now. And the tech bridges are throughout the country, 2 of them outside of the country, with the goal of establishing to facilitate innovative S&T collaborations and partnerships, to meet with non-traditional partners, and small businesses, and academic partners. So part of our mission is to host events and activities like this type of workshop where we can have better engagement with industry. So the purpose of this particular event is to be able to provide information to the small businesses and the non-traditional partners to find out about different agencies that are available and funding opportunities. So we have partners from multiple services that will be giving talks today about funding opportunities. And then we have from all 3 services are represented. Information systems is here. So we'll be talking throughout the day. Lunch will be provided, so don't sneak out, and we'll go from there. So you can go to the next slide, and I'd like to officially thank our partners, both 757 Collab. So 757 Collab, which they'll tell you about here in a minute, C5BDI. Thank you to TASC, which is the Tidewater Area of Service Contractors, for looking for registration or helping with some of the virtual aspects of the meeting. And thank you to AFWERX, who will be here later and give a little talk during lunch to talk about some of the opportunities that AFWERX provides for small businesses and then also for partners. So at this point, I'm going to introduce one of our virtual speakers, Dr. Matt Willis, who will be talking. Oh, I'm sorry. I will not introduce Dr. Willis yet. Somebody else will do that. So I'd like to bring up 757 Collab, who will be talking a little bit about that nonprofit organization that is one of the partners with the Mid-Atlantic Tech Bridge. Eileen.
Nonprofit organization that's on the first floor here, and we house the offices for Mid-Atlantic and provide services to them in our relationship with them. So we're one of their hosts today. 757 Collab offers multiple resources to the community, and since some of you may be technical startup companies or you know of technical startup companies, this is a good information for you to have. One of the entities we have is called 757 Startup Studios. That's a co-working space on the first floor of this building. It's the application selection process. Again, we either, okay, we'll try that. All right. And the startup studios, you can apply to be in the studios. It's a 6-month opportunity to work in a co-working space for free. And we have 1 or 2 presentations per week about different types of activities, whether or not it's marketing or development or HR, or how to build businesses that the participants can join. After 757 Startup Studios, we have 757 Accelerate. The Accelerate is an intensive 12-week training program that's also by application and selection process for startups who are based in the Hampton Roads area and have the ability to come into this building at least a couple times a week for the programming. And we also have 757 Angels, 757 SEC to invest. You don't go to one to get into the other to get into the next. You can apply to any one of these at any time. They all have different cycles. They all have different application periods. But if you go to our social media, we're always posting which one of them has applications open. Closed applications for the 757 Startup Studios, and we're inviting new founders to join us starting in May. Applications are open now for 757 Accelerate for the fall cohort. So if you're interested in being in a very intensive, great training program in the fall, you would want to apply now. And then 757 Angels, they do 3 funding rounds per year. They've closed and they're in the process of doing the spring, and then they're dark in the summer, and they'll have applications open for funding for the fall round. So they've already completed the winter. We've closed the spring applications, and then the fall applications will open. You can reach out to me if you have any questions about any of these, or find us on our social media site. Ways that you can engage with us. could do mentorship. If you have a desire to give back into the community, I'm the director of the mentor management. You can reach out to me. I can send you the intake form. And then when we have founders that are looking for a specific need that matches your area of expertise, I would reach out to you and ask you if you would have the time available right now to be a mentor. Mentorship can be a one-time call, or it could be a recurring call every week or every 2 weeks for a few months as you help the different founders get through their different milestones that they're working on. You can also do grant funding or be a sponsor. If you're representing a large organization that offers grants, you can be a sponsor or a grant provider for us. Definitely let us know. We'd be happy to talk about it and find opportunities for us to work together. You can become an angel investor if you are SEC accredited and you're at the point in your career that you want to give back into the community in a more tangible, equitable way. You can be an angel investor and actually join some of our pitch events and invest in some of the startups that are Virginia based. And we also do custom programming. If you have any needs where you would like us to actually run programming to provide training, we can curate a very customized program for your audience, for your specific audience. We can manage everything, the application, the selection, and the delivery of the programming. So all of these are available under the 757 umbrella. You can contact me through my email, or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Okay, and that's it from me. We'll go to Nick.
So good morning, everybody. Again, appreciate the opportunity to chat with everyone this morning. And of course, kicking off a virtual/hybrid conference is always, I'm always the guinea pig. And I would like to report, so I'm Matt Willis. I work for the Army. I'm specifically up here in Washington, D.C. So it's nice to hear that you have nice weather down in Norfolk. D.C., it's pretty nice today too, certainly better than it was yesterday. So so this morning, what I'm going to talk about, I think you'll hear today a sort of variation on a theme amongst the different stakeholders that are either in the room physically or going to be connecting virtually. But in terms of some different funding and partnership opportunities that the Department of Defense offers to small businesses and non-traditional businesses that are, at the leading edge of innovating and developing technologies that support our mission. So again, I work for the Army, and I'm the director for the X-Tech prize competition and the U.S. Army Small Business Innovation Research Program. And I'm going to be talking about both of these opportunities today. Next slide, please. So first, I'm going to start off with the X-Tech program. So again, this is the Army's flagship prize competition led by my office, which is the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Acquisition, Logistics, and Technology. And it's really intended as an opportunity or a mechanism to award and accelerate transformative technology solutions that can help solve Army problems. One of the unique things about prize competitions is, from your perspective, from a small business perspective, it's a mechanism whereby the Army can provide non-dilutive seed prizes to businesses to develop and transition technologies to support Army mission. It also provides a mechanism for us to have direct exposure and direct feedback events between Army stakeholders, be it our engineers in our labs, or soldiers in the field, or our program executive officers, and commercial stakeholders. So again, it's really a mechanism that the Army has used liberally about getting feedback, understanding the state of the art, and really cut down bureaucracy that, of course, just naturally exists in the government between the commercial sector and the government. So, within the Army, we've, especially in the last few years, really been accelerating the use of prize competitions within our overall acquisition strategy as a relatively unique mechanism for making it easy for non-traditionals and for small businesses who typically look at the government and say, oh, there's too much red tape. But this is a great mechanism that we've used historically. Next slide, please. So this is just a snapshot of how the program has evolved since launch. So we launched it about 4 years ago. It was in, actually, I think it was April of 2018 where we launched our first competition. And since then, as I mentioned, the Army has really broadened the use of this mechanism. So we've had 17 competitions, evaluated nearly 2,500 different technologies. And many of these competitions are run through a pitch style format where the proposal requirements are very, very minimal, like a 1 or 2 page white paper. And each step along the way through these prize competitions, companies receive increased levels of prize amounts. And this is really intended to offset your cost to engage with the Army. So one of the common feedbacks that we received, when we were standing up this program from many small businesses was that they really wanted to engage with the department, but there was this so-called, we'll say, a pay-to-play paradigm, right, where in order for you as a small business or non-traditional business to engage with the department, you had to travel to meet a stakeholder. You had to spend money on salary, and it's not free to engage with the government, right? So the X-Tech prize competition, again, one of the impetuses there was to say, okay, well, if we can provide a prize to offset these engagement costs, then we can potentially bring in new ideas into the department. And so so this has been something that's evolved significantly from where we were just a few years ago, and I think the Army will continue to use it as a very unique mechanism to engage with small businesses. Next slide, please. So this slide is a bit in the weeds, but and so I won't go into it too much. But needless to say that the point of it is that within the Department of Defense, there are multiple avenues or multiple mechanisms by which we can execute prize competitions. There's a Department of Defense authority, and there's a Department of Commerce authority. One of the great things within the X-Tech program is that we liberally use both authorities. And they provide an opportunity for us to run a prize competition on the front end, which really makes it easy. It's an easy point of entry for businesses that aren't used to engaging with the government to put in an application, receive feedback, engage in our mentorship opportunities. But then on the back end, we have the opportunity to execute R&D contracts, such as through the Small Business Innovation Research Program or through other research and development mechanisms. So there's really an opportunity on both sides of the house in terms of making it easier for small businesses to engage with the Army, to sort of dissect what are often very complicated requirements documents or complicated solicitations. Whereas on the back end, the Army still gets benefits by having that more formalized relationship with small businesses so that they can then actually contribute to our R&D mission. Next slide. So I've sort of spoken to a lot of this. You might be thinking, well, this sounds great to us. What are the benefits to the Army? But so I think that within the X-Tech program, there are benefits to both the Army, of course, and also to non-defense, non-traditional, or even traditional defense businesses. So from a company perspective, and I've spoken to a lot of this already, but there's a low barrier of entry. all companies, when they engage with the X-Tech program, get transparent and direct feedback from many different Army subject matter experts. So when we're reviewing proposals, we are providing feedback directly to companies. And we're not just reviewing it from a single perspective. You know, we provide a technical feedback, you know, commercialization potential, application to an Army mission. Is there an opportunity to potentially pivot your technology to support an Army mission? Or sometimes just as valuable, the Army doesn't necessarily see opportunities for technology X, but there might be you know, potential applications to some of our defense or non-defense partners. From an Army perspective, you know, I've already spoken to this as well, but the X-Tech competition provides a mechanism for the Army to ensure, you know, that we're really, you know, evaluating and cognizant of the state-of-the-art technologies that that are being developed in the private sector. So how can we stay current on technology development? How can we potentially, as I mentioned a second ago, pivot a technology to support an Army need? And also, of course, growing the ecosystem, increasing collaborations, both within the Army and also with small business innovators. Next slide. So in addition to the actual prize competition process, we also run an accelerator program in conjunction with the X-Tech prize competition. And this is really aimed at facilitating the transition of technologies from these prize competitions into, you know, Army programs. And so this actually, again, I think, I haven't seen all of the presentations today, but I think this will forecast some of the different opportunities that some of our partners offer. But the accelerator, the X-Tech accelerator, is really intended and customized for participants in the X-Tech prize competition, where we provide mentorship opportunities, educational programming, you know, how you can best engage with the government. We provide venture building activities, strategic exposure, and then community building amongst the X-Tech participants. And just a few sample of metrics on the right here, just sort of highlighting you know, the impact of this accelerator. And again, this is a bespoke accelerator for every competition that we run under the X-Tech umbrella, which again is ever expanding. Next slide. Oh my God, this, I don't know what, this is definitely an eye chart, but I will say that the point here is that, you know, as mentioned, we launched 4 years ago with one single open topic competition, X-Tech Search, which is essentially an opportunity for small business, non-traditional innovators to propose any technology to the Army. And, you know, we relied on Army subject matter experts to identify if there was an opportunity to apply that technology within the Army mission space. Since then, we've broadened significantly to include both open topic competitions under the X-Tech Search umbrella, and also many technology-specific competitions. So if you go to our website, which is xtechsearch.army.mil, you can see all the open competitions right now, and all the ones that have recently closed. So currently, I believe that the X-Tech Detect competition is open, and so that's a competition that's focused specifically on developing detection technologies for improvised explosive devices. We also have a clean tech competition open right now. So that's a somewhat open competition, open technology competitions focused specifically on climate change and energy resiliency. And there are no number of other competitions that will be opening soon. So needless to say, you know, throughout the year, we have many different competitions that are open. you follow our web or go to our website, xtechsearch.army.mil, or follow our social media on, we have LinkedIn and Twitter, or you can certainly connect with me on LinkedIn as well. And we provide access to all of these. Next slide. All right, so that was the spiel on the XTech competition. I'm going to pivot to speak about the SBIR program, and I believe there might be an opportunity at the end to ask questions. If not, we can certainly take questions and respond to them afterwards. So, as mentioned, I also manage the Army's Small Business Innovation Research Program, and I'm sure many of you are familiar, with the SBIR program, but from an Army perspective, we're really, strategically across the Army, leaning on the Small Business Innovation Research Program to really inject innovation into Army technologies and Army systems. So we've been adopting many of the lessons that we've learned through the XTech prize competitions to really try to inject innovation and agility into the SBIR program. So how can we, break down barriers to working with the Army? How can we continue to stimulate technological innovation and partner with small businesses that, again, are leading innovation in the private sector, so we can develop and deliver the best technologies for our customer in the Army, which is, of course, the U.S. soldier. Next slide, please. So, just in terms of overarching program values for the Army, and again, I think this will resonate with many of my my DoD partners, but we're really, again, leaning forward to be as timely as possible. We recognize that cash flow is king often for small businesses. So really trying to be as deliberate as possible about how we can identify opportunities that are of need to the Army, but also minimize the time to contract. Being transparent, so providing timely feedback, and also ensuring that the R&D projects that we're investing in within the Army have a clear Army need and have a customer identified up front. So that certainly speaks to transition, having stakeholder engagement up front. So from a cost, schedule, and performance perspective, this isn't science for the sake of science, right? The Army is investing in technologies that are of use and need to the Army. And so one thing I will say as a brief aside, if you are familiar with the Small Business Innovation Research Program, it's an overall government program. There's many different agencies that run it. One thing that makes the Department of Defense unique is not only are we technology investors, right? So we are investing in technology development through the SBIR and STTR programs, but we're also technology consumers, right? So across the Department of Defense, we are acquiring technologies. So I think you'll find that many of the opportunities that that we talk about today, are certainly driven by service-specific needs. All right, next slide, please. So in terms of the Army program in particular, again, I think you'll find a lot of similarities to what we've done through the XTech program, where we actually issue solicitations for SBIR contract opportunities throughout the year. The rationale for this is, the Army sees the SBIR program as an opportunity to be agile and respond to emerging needs. So throughout the year, you'll see these contract solicitation opportunities come out. So this contrasts a bit with certain elements of the Department of Defense, which use their 3 standard solicitation cycles per year.
And then this is eventually going
But
to
so
be
for the Army, we'll be doing things throughout the year. Next slide, please. In terms of we'll say the road to contract, or the road to contract. So, typically within the Small Business Innovation and Research Program, projects are broken up into 3 phases. The first phase is a proof of concept phase, and it's typically up to about $250,000. The second phase is a prototyping phase, and then the third phase is when you actually are, selling your technology back to the government, either through an R&D contract or a procurement contract or any other contract mechanism. So that's really is our goal, right? So from an Army perspective, though, I think that the point of this slide is that there is no standard SBIR path. So within the Army, we are really focusing on this green dot to the right here, right? Which is we have a technology need. We know when we need it, and within the Army, and so we are going to use the SBIR program to develop that technology and deliver it to our Army customer at cost X with timeline Y. And so I think that there's a lot of flexibility within the program that we're really trying to infuse within the Army writ large. And so I certainly, again, would encourage you to go to our website, which is armycibr.army.mil, to continue to watch for different opportunities as they come out. But certainly recognizing that the SBIR program is very flexible. There's many different opportunities within this for you to leverage to supplement your R&D efforts as non-dilutive research and development contract, but certainly from an Army perspective to contribute to our mission. Next slide. So in terms of basically what I was just speaking about, the road to contract and starting with the end in mind. Another thing unique within the Army is that we're managing our portfolio through this construct that we've deemed the transition broker teams. And so this again really focuses on transition, right? We're hyper focused on not only investing in technology development, but investing in technologies that are relevant to Army needs. So what these transition broker teams are cross-functional teams within the Army that have stakeholders from our technical community, our acquisition community, and tech scouting community to really define and drive the Army SBIR portfolio. So what does this mean from your perspective, from a small business perspective? This is really exciting actually, because what this means is that we're starting with the end in mind. So when you submit a proposal to an Army solicitation, you can be assured that not only is that research and development project a critical need to the Army, but we have already identified who our transition partner is up front. So again, going back to what I mentioned a few moments ago, this is not science for the sake of science. This is research and development to support an Army need with a clear transition partner identified up front. So again, this is a pivot from at least the way the Army has historically structured our SBIR program. And I also think that this is again something that a theme you'll see throughout with our other DoD partners. Next slide. So in terms of the technology verticals that we're investing in within the Army, they're listed here on this slide. So we invest in many different things, but our primary focus areas are shown in this slide. And so these technology focus areas were identified by, of course, areas that are relevant to the Army, but we're really looking at places, technology domains where the private sector is well ahead of where the Army is organically. and also technology domains where, there's a high compound area growth rate. So technology domains where the private sector is already investing in. And so the Army has decided to invest our SBIR resources in these areas to really synergize investments that are already happening in the private sector. So, and you can see these areas are still relatively broad, but, artificial intelligence and machine learning, autonomy technologies, smart sensors, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, climate change and energy resiliency or clean tech, and also immersive/wearables. Next slide. So, from a contracting perspective, I know this is never the most exciting thing, but we've been on the heels of the Navy and the Air Force to establish our own contracting cell. This should also be exciting to use a small business to recognize that contracts will be streamlined and executed much more expeditiously than historically. Next slide. And I know I kind of sped through that, but you can find all of this information and much more on our website. So armycibber.army.mil for the SBIR and STTR programs, and xtechsearch.army.mil for the xtech program. And of course, you can follow us on LinkedIn or Twitter, and you can certainly connect to me as well on LinkedIn. Constantly pushing out opportunities. So again, I appreciate the time today. I don't know if there's time for any questions, but I will hang on the line for a while if there are any.
Hey, quick question. Your slide answers the first question I had about the X-Tech HBCU student prize. I think late spring is what we're looking at as far as that being open.
Yes, and so that is a very exciting initiative that we're executing. So we recently did an X-Tech HBCU competition focusing on faculty, and we are going to be opening this later this spring a competition for students.
Your brief discussed a lot about the SBIR program. How much success have you guys had with STTR and working with academic institutions?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And so our STTR program is actually run through the Army Research Office, which manages all of the Army's basic research projects, which are primarily a portion of it is run through the Army Research Laboratory, but most of the Army's basic research portfolio is run through universities. So we've actually found a tremendous amount of success managing our STTR program through ARO because we already have these sort of built-in connections between or with the university community. So for those of you who are not familiar, the STTR program is a sister program to the Small Business Innovation Research Program. What it requires is a partnership with a non-for-profit research institution such as a university. So yes, we've had a tremendous amount of success with that as well. Thank you for the question.
Hi, Dr. Willis, Steve Waddell. Got a question about government integration. We're about to land a grant with the National Institute of Health, SBIR, phase 1, and it has machine learning, computer vision, some clean tech. There may be some application with the Army. So suppose we're successful with phase 1. How is there a possibility to get the Army to participate in phase 2, or how does all that work? Is there any way to integrate this stuff?
Yes, there absolutely is. So one of the great things about the SBIR and STTR programs is, again, they're government-wide programs. So once a firm has a phase 1 award, there's an opportunity to get up to 2 phase 2 awards based on that technology that's was proposed in the phase 1 project. And that can be across any government agency. So within the Department of Defense, there's a tremendous amount of collaboration between the Navy, Air Force, Army, fourth estate, other DoD organizations in terms of, if a technology needs to potentially pivot, can we transfer awards, or can I and the Army have execute a phase 2 award based on an Air Force phase 1? But absolutely, there's opportunities to go even beyond that, across different government organizations. And it's just about connecting the dots and making sure that there's connectivity between the right POCs. But that is definitely something that can happen, and is I think one of the great benefits of the SBIR program.
Thank you, Dr. Willis. Did that go through? Okay. Yeah, the slides will be made available. We've got 2 quick questions online, and then we're going to transition to the next speaker. So one of the questions is, what percentage transition rate does the TBT have for phase 2 or phase 3 awards?
Yeah, I see that, and that's a great question. And I will say, this is gonna be a cop out, but so the transition broker team, this is like a brand new thing, for the Army. So I'll say historically, the Army has had a relatively poor phase 2 to phase 3 transition rate, particularly if we compare to the Navy, the All-Star, and also the Air Force is doing a great job as well. But we've had a pretty low transition rate. So, but we believe that, bringing our customer in up front, and I say by customer, I mean who is going to be purchasing the technology or acquiring the technology, will really, really accelerate our transition rate from phase 2 to phase 3. What the percentages, I'm not even going to guess, but I think that it will increase by at least an order of magnitude the Army's phase 3 awards. But since this concept has really only been stood up within the last 12 months, we don't have that data to support that, but I certainly believe it will. And so then the second question is another great question. In terms of level of effort, is X-Tech or SBIR easier? And I think I'll say it, and it depends. So X-Tech is a very easy competition to engage with up front. Usually it's like a 1-page white paper. We've had quad chart submissions. We've had video submissions. So getting your foot in the door, I would say, is easier with X-Tech because it's a prize competition. Within the SBIR program, though, we've been adopting, again, a lot of these best practices. So historically, the Army's required like a 50-page proposal for SBIR. Recently, we've changed that to it's just 5 pages, or it's just a 10-slide PowerPoint deck. And so we've been trying to make it easier for the SBIR program, but since there are certain statutory requirements and certain policy requirements through the Small Business Administration, there's certainly a bit more bureaucracy there. But some of the opportunities, for instance, the Clean Tech X-Tech competition that's currently open, it starts with an X-Tech prize competition, but the winners will receive an SBIR Phase 1 award. So it's kind of a hybrid model that uses the ease of entry for the X-Tech prize competition, but then on the back end, companies that win the competition will be eligible to receive an SBIR Phase 1 or Phase 2 award, direct Phase 2 award.
Thank you, Dr. Willis. And we're going to wrap up right now, and we're going to shift over to our next speaker. But if you can stay around for a little bit, if anyone has any questions in the chat, and then we're going to have a networking break in about an hour. But if you're able to stay, great. If not, we completely understand. But thank you again for your time.
Glad to be here with everyone today. All right, so I'll go ahead and jump right into this. This is definitely an in-depth deck, and there's a lot of room for questions. And really the best way that we give this presentation is when it's an active conversation. So if you do have questions that pop up, please feel free to type them in the chat on the side, and I will get to them at the end of the presentation. So once again, good morning. I guess it is morning. I'm on calls all day today, so I don't even know what time of day it is anymore. My name is Helena Krusec. I'm the Deputy Engagement Lead for AF Ventures here with the AFWERX team. And I'm here to talk to you today about our non-dilutive funding opportunities and how our organization works with small businesses to get new technologies into the Air Force. Next slide, please. All right, first things first. So AF Ventures is the Department of the Air Force's commercial investment group. That means our mission is to invest in emerging technologies to scale warfighting capability. Next slide, please. The vision is that we want to create a transformed industrial base that empowers the warfighters. And what this means for you is that it's most important to understand that we are not just trying to create 100 new prime defense contractors. We are trying to use government customers and funding from the military to help create an industrial base that is strong, that supports the national economy, to support both defense use cases and commercial use cases. So keep that in mind as we're discussing things like dual use throughout the rest of this presentation. Next slide. The way that we do this is that we incentivize private for-profit investment in national security interests by matching emerging commercial solutions with Department of the Air Force problems. And we do that in a couple of ways at various stages of the organization that I will get into on the next slide. So this is the overall organization of AFWERX as a whole. There's really three main components of the organization, each designed to work with a different sort of user persona at different stages to help push different stages and TRLs of technology through the process. The first on the ground that you see here is AFWERX Spark. The goal of this program is to expand talent. This is the program that works directly with airmen and guardians, because again, guardians, SpaceWorks are a part of AFWERX. So what we do in Spark is we source real world problems that we encourage folks on the ground to talk to us about and try to find solutions to them inside the Air Force. Where we are not able to source solutions via these Spark tanks, right, that are installations all over the world, really based in our MatchCon areas. What we do is we solicit the private sector to help us find solutions to those problems and figure out ways to integrate them into those on the ground operations. Next organization that feeds into is AF Ventures, which is where I work. Really the goal of this organization at a very high level is to create the front door through which the private sector can work with the Air Force to receive non-dilutive funding to create prototypes and solutions that empower the warfighter, really getting them plugged back into that Spark network and bigger transition opportunities, as you see to the right with AFWERX Prime. Really apropos name, because the goal of Prime is to, no kidding, prime the pump for industries that might traditionally have issues finding support in the private sector without support of the government. So the existing two Prime initiatives, Agility and Orbital Prime, are both focused on industries and spaces that traditionally have either a lack of venture capital and private industry investment, whether because that there's high barriers to entry. Think space, right? Outer space is really a place in which it's very difficult to deploy capital for this tech, because you have to be able to do lab demo space. You have to be able to put a product onto a launch vehicle and get it into outer space. And the cost of doing so is prohibitively high, really, for small businesses. So the goal of Prime is to help create opportunities for those emerging industries to find customers and then really jump over those hurdles to receive better private investment. And as a whole, this organization is really looking to expand that portfolio of capabilities to deliver better solutions directly to the warfighter. Next slide, please. All right, so this is really a high-level overview of the changes that we have been through in the past several years, since 2018 when AFWERX launched. I work for this organization, so I'm probably somewhat biased, but what we've been able to do with such a small team is incredibly impressive. We really started AFWERX with a very small team of leaders who were just trying to figure out different ways that we could leverage contracting to engage with small businesses, and had a very small budget of a couple of $1 million. Since then, we've gone through a lot of growing pains, a lot of changes in iteration. We've gone through changes with the Center of Excellence structure. We've created AFWERX 2.0 and gone through a recent reorganization that you see there at the end under 2022, where we've reformed AFWERX to be the front door for all things SBIR and STTR for the Department of the Air Force. That means if there's any opportunity for a small business to get plugged into non-dilutive funding, it has to go through our organization first. And we have gone from this small group with $1 million budget up to estimated about $1 billion annual budget, and we've deployed about $4 billion in capital to small businesses. So very much a strong growing organization that is found our footing and now working to execute and build a much stronger program. Next slide, please. All right, so here's the so what. This is how all of this matters, and for your purposes, these are the different mechanisms through which you can get involved with the Department of the Air Force. The first on here is the open topic. And this is what we was previously mentioned in the last presentation. The Air Force has been incredibly prolific in instituting and supporting the open topic. And what's great about the open topic is that it creates a mechanism through which industry can come to the Air Force and tell us what we don't know. We leverage what we call a focus area dashboard, where different program executive offices, tech directorates, really the end users from that Spark level, the customers and the end users can come to us and let us know broadly what areas in which they need help. We then bring that list, that wish list, out to industry and say, please let us know what we don't know and submit a solution. And from there, that's where you get into these phase 1 and phase 2 awards. The purpose of that phase 1 award is to really help establish feasibility. It gives the company the opportunity to pitch their emerging tech, those concepts for funding. And most recently, this award ceiling has been pushed up to $75,000. From there, completion of that successful phase 1, the goal of the next phase of the program, phase 2, is to work directly with an Air Force customer to find product market fit and ensure that prototype delivery. The ceiling for that phase 2 award is now up to $1.5 million. And the bottom line for that program is that you do have to have an Air Force government customer in order to be eligible to participate in that program. So the big emphasis on that side of the ecosystem is working with government customers to sign an MOU in order to get through to the next stage of funding. That's the open topic. The big differentiator between the open topic and the one below it is that open topic is designed explicitly for technology areas that are both commercial and defense use cases. So when we're talking about the concept of dual use, we want to ensure that we are creating opportunities for the industrial base, the American defense industrial base, to create strong companies. And we do that by fielding funding to companies that are not just defense focused. That's the purpose of open topic. Alternatively, specific topic is designed for those with problem sets that are really only geared towards defense problems. A really good example of this, and one that is live now that we are soliciting proposals for, is the Nuclear Weapons Center. In the commercial space, there's not really a ton of good commercial use cases for nuclear weapons, right? The biggest customer and the strongest customer explicit use case for that is going to be a defense one. And so those topics are designed to help ensure that, that those really specific defense needs are receiving funding and finding lanes through which small businesses can work with them. Same type of bucket dollar amounts, and I'll get to that on the next slide. But the next big way that you can work with our organization is through supplemental funding, and that is that TACFI and STRATFI bullets there. TACFI stands for tactical financing, and STRATFI stands for strategic financing. And the most important thing for you to know is that this is a mechanism by which phase 2 awardees can receive additional funding to help ensure that their prototype is successfully transitioned out, leveraging both government matching funds, AFWERX funding, and private matching dollars. If you want to get to the next slide, I believe there should be a good overview for you. This is the one that you'll see over and over. This is the high level information of really what you need to know. Again, these are the buckets of funding associated with each. And the most important thing for you to know is that each of these gets solicited out to the public in different cyclical stages. We just did a pre-release of the most current one that will include a SBIR phase 1 and D2P2. So this is a really great way for companies to get their foot in the door in terms of getting to know government customers and getting involved in the transition pathway. Next slide here. This is a high level overview of StratFi TACFi. This has been, in our experience working with the private sector, this has been the funding mechanism that most people are excited about because it typically has the highest dollar value amount. The other reason that this is really exciting to the private sector is because companies that get selected for phase 2 and are working to create more serious finalized versions of their prototype typically are a little bit further along in the process, right? So those companies soliciting StratFi and TACFi funding tend to be those that the private sector takes a bit more seriously. So these are the high level data points on what is required in order to participate in each of these funding rounds. We have a really great new website. If you go to AFWERX.com, there is a StratFi TACFi website with some fantastic resources here that'll walk you through each of these matching requirements. But the most important thing for you to know is that tactical funding, it's a smaller dollar bucket of funds, typically between 1.8 million and 3 million, and then StratFi TACFi between 3 and 15 million. And that is also, I must note, not including matched funding. We have seen StratFi TACFi rounds that end up bringing together, $30 to $60 million using some combination of additional government funds and private funding. So this is really where the big bets that previously we had discussed come into play. Next slide, please. This is a high-level overview of the types of technology that we have invested in via the open topic. And the point of this is to demonstrate that this closely matches, I think, what the private sector is looking at in terms of technology that they are investing in. It goes to show that the government, particularly the Air Force, is a very broad and diversified customer, and that we are looking for a lot of different technologies via the open topic, not explicitly missiles, weapon systems, and sort of the traditionally thought of tech that goes into the military. So next slide here. This is just a high level overview of what we have done since taking over this program in 2018. As you can see here, the number of single topic SBIR applicants has really exploded. We've had some of our biggest cycles to date in the past, last couple of months, and the number of companies working with us and the amount of capital necessary to deploy to support those companies is absolutely exponentially grown. So this is definitely a successful program, and we're now working to figure out how do we institutionalize this and ensure that we've got good funding for it. We've added almost 1,600 companies to that SBIR STTR program and increased the number of phase 3 companies in a given year from 170 to 282. Increased total value of those phase 3 contracts again to $751 million, and added $500,000 in matching non-SBIR funds to those contracts. By non-SBIR funds, we are talking about other government grants. That is not including private investment. And you can see there that lower bullet, open topic companies have received almost $9 billion on follow-on venture capital. So the so what point of this is that companies that are working with the Department of the Air Force via non-dilutive funding, whether that's SBIR, STTR, StratFi, TACFi, are growing on to be successful companies that are doing fantastic things in the ecosystem. And actually, I needed to update this. I don't think it got included on this document, but we are currently sitting at about 22 unicorns in the portfolio. So that is a very strong indicator that regardless of the order of operations, the companies that the Air Force is working with are going on to do really incredible things. Next slide, please. So here's the so what, here's how you can get involved. I've listed here resources for each of the big programs that we've talked about today. Open topic program is typically the easiest to get into, especially if you are a brand new company who has never done any business with the Department of the Air Force, it's a broad opportunity to get plugged in and check out different needs statements from across the organization. So I definitely encourage you to go check out that focus areas link. That's a really great way to check out the shopping list of what different folks across the DAF have put in as needs statements and start thinking about different technology solutions that you can propose. For a specific topic, that's going to be a slightly different process. Specific topic is sort of taking over for what's been known as the legacy topic space. And we're working to create a repeatable, scalable, truly data-driven practice to ensure that we are not only aligning the needs of those defense topics with broader Air Force priorities, but also streamlining the way that those different tech directorates receive funding from AFWERX. So stay tuned. As that program gets finalized, we will be releasing more information publicly. For supplemental funding increases, draft by TAC5, please reach out to that email address there if you have specific questions. Again, we've worked really hard to put out great collateral and better information about how to get involved. So there is a very robust library of resources and info sheets online to help you walk through the checklist of how to apply there. Last one on here, SpaceWorks is supported by the Air Force. So even though we are two separate organizations, we are really essentially one. The SpaceWorks Ventures team works directly with our organization, and we help them with a lot of the efforts that they are building out, including that Catalyst Space Accelerator, Hyperspace Challenge, and helping them to inform the way forward on their newer initiatives like Orbital Prime. Check out their website there if you have questions about how to get involved. And I think there's one more slide, I think. Yes, here's the resources tab. This is a great place for you to check out one-pagers, FAQs, previously recorded webinars. We do have a weekly webinar series that goes live on Thursdays at 11 a.m. Central Time. So please register for that if you can and you have questions. We are trying to streamline all of our interaction with the public into that space so that it's very easy to access and find different answers to your questions. And then this is just the tentative BAA schedule. Of course, this is always subject to change, just depending on what contract specifics come out. But this is the best place to get involved if you're looking for a good place to start. So I think the next slide is just the questions, and I am happy to take any questions from the audience.
Yeah, this is a question about the $9 billion in follow-on VC funding. That's a huge amount, at least in my mind. Was that focused in any specific technical area? Was that like the majority of it for companies working with satellites or rockets, or was it like spread across a broad range of technologies?
It's spread across a broad range. So if you go, I'm trying to see if I have any additional slides here on the side that can be useful to this. But the slide that I showed earlier that shows the different investment areas, it pretty closely mirrors what you're seeing in the venture capital space. So there is, of course, some selection bias there. The VC community understands a couple of things really well. One of those things being SaaS, right? That's pretty common across the venture capital ecosystem. So a lot of times those that are doing well with government customers in spaces that are accessible to the venture space, they're going to be those that succeed quickly. I can tell you, I'm trying to find some additional slides here to see if I can pull them up. Looks like I can't share them, but I can tell you from the tech sectors that I'm seeing here reflect the top 70% of the top 5 tech areas that the private sector is investing in. So think about things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, space broadly. Again, the venture community has a harder time working with things like hardware, at least at earlier stages. So think, software capabilities with some hardware, cyber, enterprise business, and then networked command and control and communications. Those are the top 5 that I have on my list here. Hope that helps answer your question. One thing I will say is that we're working to retool our 2021 annual report and hoping to get that out soon. All of that information with those sector information will be published as soon as we can get that through PA. So definitely keep an eye out for that.
The first one I'll start with is, you've heard from the Army and the Air Force, my sister services. And the first thing I'll ask you is, do you have brothers and sisters? Most of us do. if we want to admit it. Are you alike? Do you think the same? Do things? So neither do we. Okay. They have awesome programs. We do it different. I will say mom likes me best. Okay. How many people from government in here? Couple. How many people from academia? How many from industry? Small businesses. Great. Let's spend some time talking. If you've got a question, raise your hand now, and we'll get to that first before I kill you with PowerPoint. Any questions? Last is there anybody from the IRS? Awesome. My email, of course, we're DOD, so the 42.civ means something. Just send me an email. I'll either answer the question or find the expert that has the answer to any and all questions. We work across the Navy, and I don't have all the answers. People keep going, hey, do you know Sally over such and such? I'm sorry, I don't know all 32,000 scientists and engineers in the Navy, much less Admiral Moneybags. Why is SBIR STTR of value to you? $4 billion reasons for it to be of interest to you. There's the full federal government. You see DOD, you see the Navy, and then you see the 8, what we call systems commands, our acquisition folks who deliver platforms, capabilities to our warfighters. Those are 8 commands on a daily basis. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. We work together. You'll find there's quite a bit of similarity between what the Navy does and the platforms the Air Force has and the ships that the Army has. You'd be amazed that, if NASA has a robot that can work at Mars, there might be technologies from that robot that I can use in the undersea realm. So we are constantly sharing, swapping, trading topics and efforts to pursue our individual needs. So keep that in mind as you start building that relationship, that the Navy may not be your first customer, but if we are, we're going to help you find those other customers. Not as pretty as some other people's slides, but here is the yellow brick road to phase 3, to commercialization, to transition. It's a long, arduous, complicated process. If anyone tells you working with the federal government is easy, they owe you a beer. But what I will tell you, that the Navy's program produces over 50% of all phase 3 awards in the DoD. We're not counting anybody else's money, just what another federal person says, your technology was good enough for me to spend my money on it. Because I can tell you, I've got lots of people that love something that is really important to them as long as I pay for it. But we work through that. So that's phase 3. That is the goal of the program, for you to commercialize, transition your technology. There are actually academic impact studies out there that show you that it's a 22-to-1 return on your taxpayers' dollars for this program, which is, let me be a couple minutes of Debbie Downer. If Congress doesn't get their act together, this program will cease to exist on the 30th of September of this year. So if you like this program, you might want to talk to your elected officials and have a conversation. So let's go back. In the Navy, it all starts with a topic and a warfighter's need. That's where our demand signals come from. Our purpose is to support the warfighter, and it all derives from there. At the moment, you won't understand or appreciate why increasing the electrical output by a couple ohms means something to us, but it does. But the topic drives what we do in this program. It also says, we already know if it works, where's it gonna go? Okay. Transition is baked into our process. So it's really hard to get through the door. It's about a 17-to-1 number of proposals to selections. Okay. But once you're in the door, it's our job to make sure you're successful because we want that solution for our warfighter. It's not a pass, a lot of hard work, but we get there. So you see the number of topics, those result in 3,000 proposals. Those go to 550 phase 1 awards. Then the Navy, we give you the full thing, which is now $240,000, I believe, onto phase 2, 1.8. Let's get it done, folks. It's a lot of research, a lot of risk. We like to do it that way. Okay. Ways to participate. Those are nifty little QRC codes if you just want to put your phone over them, and it'll take you right to the website. It has all the information that I've forgotten to mention. Okay, got to determine your eligibility. You've heard that before. Look for topics that align with what your company wants to do. So if you're in the metals business, I don't think you should be looking at electronics topics, vice versa. Okay, so you see where the alignment is. Find the places where the federal government's going to pay you money to do what you love to do. Not a bad proposal. Okay, understand the instructions. May God help us all. They're voluminous, they're confusing, but there are lots of people in your community to help you understand which ones are really important, help you understand that. Understand each service has slightly different instructions and what's important to meet. Okay, follow those instructions, because guess what? If it says no smaller than 10 pitch font and you try to get snarky and put in 8, people with glasses like me get really pissed off and we kick it out. Okay. Actually, that's quite true. You know, there's a page count, a font size, all the things people try to do. And then next thing we'll get like 48 embedded pictures like I'm supposed to. Okay. And don't be late. If the solicitation closes on noon on Friday, 11 a.m. that morning is the wrong time to realize you haven't submitted all of your paperwork. Because I guarantee at 11:32, the web will go down. And remember the instructions you read? There's a line in there that says, ain't our fault if the web goes down. So follow that. We even make it easier. There are templates for you to use to follow, to fill in already on our website, because we try not to change those templates between solicitations. Knock, knock. We're in a current solicitation. We're in the 22.2, which is SBIR, the 22.B, which is the STTR. Quick question. Which is easier to get, an SBIR award or an STTR award? STTR. No cheating, you're in the business. STTR. Remember I said it's about 17-to-1 proposals to topics in SBIR? It's like 8-to-1 in STTR. The hook there is you got to have a research partner. And for some reason, small businesses don't like to work with other people. It's to your advantage to find those teammates, those partners that will help all of you succeed. Okay, why are the pre-release, open and close important periods within a solicitation? Has anybody talked about that yet today? Pre-release, you can ask questions directly with that author about what they meant to write is what you think you read. So you can understand what might make a stronger proposal. How many of you think it's wrong to talk to your customer? That topic author is your customer. You might want to make sure you understand what your customer wants. Use that time. That's a private conversation between you and them. When the open period starts, you can still ask questions and they will still give you an answer. And then we'll post both of those on the web for all your competition to read. So it's a really good time during the open period to put out your intellectual property. Not, okay. So there you go. Close, and we're off to the races of getting all those proposals evaluated, selected, figuring out how much money you have for the TPOC to go. Am I going to fund 3 or 4 phase ones off of this. All that happens, and then hopefully within 90 days, we make an announcement for you. The evaluations don't change. Technical proposal, technical team, your transition plan. For the Navy, it's all federal government employees do the evaluations. In fact, the TPOC is one of the people that will evaluate those topics. Remember that customer that you're supposed to have had the conversation with? They're still there. Okay. You see the selection percentages and moving from phase 1 to phase 2, making progression, being honest if there have been challenges. Okay. Bad news doesn't get better. We'd really like you to bring it up front because it's research. We need to adapt, adjust, overcome. We want to work with you. If you wait till the day before your final proof of concept is due, we're probably not going to see you in the light as a valued partner. Okay, unique to us, we try to make this complicated Byzantine, hair-pulling, hair-graying process as easy as possible for the small business. To where you say, you know what, I want to work with the Navy. And one of those is when our two-step from phase 1 to phase 2 is we'll do an initial phase 2 proposal, make sure we all agree that maybe we want to go there before. It's usually about 10 pages before we say we want the full proposal, which is, I think at this point, 25 pages. A lot of work goes in there. So it's, once again, we're going to incrementally move. Okay, we've been building that relationship, right? You talk to the TPOC, you understand what the proposal, you put in a kick proposal, got selected, you did your phase 1, got getting ready for phase 2, everybody puts in their phase 2 initial proposal. They say, congratulations, we want you to put in a full proposal. And oh, by the way, here's your phase 1 option to keep you funded and moving as we go into phase 2. How do I say this? The Navy has been doing cost matching, cost share, incentivizing programs to get to commercialization, transition for over 20 years. We just happen to use really dull words for it. We call it a sequential, subsequent, a 2.5. It's the same thing. We incentivize that program office. They bring some money, we'll give them some money, we'll make that really big phase 2 go, okay? And they're there. And it's, we get very serious about getting you across that valley of death. Chasm of challenge. Phase 3, funding from anybody else other than the SBIR program. What phase 3 is a group of authorities unique to the SBIR STTR program in all of the federal government. And they're really, really, really special. Because there's nowhere else in the federal government where I can look in the eye and go, I like what you did. Here's your sole source contract. Here's your sole source contract for $100 million. Yes, we've had those. Granted, most of them are going to be in the 5 to 10 million. But if you see some of our companies, I don't have the chart. One company's been an SBIR firm for about 20 years, and they've exceeded $1 billion in federal phase 3 awards. Okay, because phase 3 allows me to extend, derive, complete that SBIR work. Once you're through the door, as the Air Force said, you're in the stable. You're somebody I can go to years later and go, I saw what you did for the Navy way back when. Did you progress that? Can we adapt that? Can we tweak it for today's challenge? So you'd be amazed at how many materials issues on an F4 jet are now still applicable to an MV-22. Okay, and we can't add money into it. We have our phase 3 guidebook. What is that? It puts all of the authorities for phase 3s in one location, makes your job easier, and it's something that you roll up and you whack the contracts officer over the head to explain to them that, yes, this is legal. You never got taught this in school, but you're allowed to give this phase 3 award. Okay. The number of times I've heard from the companies that the phase 3 guidebook is what finally broke the dam for both the program manager and the contracts officer to understand that they can do a sole source phase 3 with you today. Okay. My sister services have a phase 3 guidebook. It has the same information as the Navy, but I've got to say they've got a far better graphics department. We talked about these are transition-driven topics. We have a need. We need you to solve. We hope you knock it out of the park because our warfighters will appreciate both of us for that. We do topic workshops when the solicitation is out so you can hear about what we're really meaning, what's the direction we're going with our topics. We changed the way we make our phase 1 awards. So essentially on the kickoff is reason enough if you turn in some paperwork that we make that first payment, maybe even bigger. And we talked about the transition, tailored transition support. Tailored transition support. What's that talking about? I don't get a solution unless you're a successful company. So what happens when there's 2 of you in your garage and you came up with the solution the Navy wanted, and I said, I love it, I want it, deliver 100 of those at the end of next month. I need 1,000 by the end of the year. And then you say, I don't have the ability to deliver at scale. What we now have is a failure. What we now have is a ruined relationship because I'm not going to trust you because you can't deliver the solutions I need. So we're going to start working on that at phase 2. Target acquisition, specific needs, there you go, transition targets. Workshops go through some of the things you can think through, and part of that is understanding there are a lot of people within your region ready to help you. Procurement technical assistance, you've got the tech bridge here, people that understand the process and can help you through. So don't think you've got to do this alone because it's exceedingly daunting, but we can get there. You probably don't care, but it's really difficult to convince a contracting organization that's spending the other $11.8 billion in Navy R&D that they should pay attention to me. So we basically started our own contract center, hired our people. That's all they do is SBIRs. This whole back there is a goddess at phase 3 contracts. Guess what? They move a lot faster now because of the skill sets and the people dedicated to doing only one thing, SBIR. Okay, there you go. We talked about the awards. You have to use fraud, waste, and abuse training. Thank you, GAO. Okay. Transition support, STP. Gotta love an embedded acronym, by the way. Yeah, which is an acronym within an acronym. So we have the SBIR STTR transition program. Every Navy phase 2 is invited to participate in this program. Think of this as the master's program on business development, things you need to do to grow your company. Okay, so how many of you are contract specialists? Well, only one hand going up. Okay, how many of you have your Juris Doctorate? How many of you are production engineers? Okay, guess what? We're talking about the things it's going to take, the team you're going to need to build to deliver at scale, right? Does it mean you need to start building your factory the day you get your phase 2 award? No, It's now time for you to think about what I'm going to do if I'm successful. Do I need to build a factory? Do I team with a prime who has a factory? Do I need to find a printer to print the stickers to give to the subcontractor who's going to produce the solution? You work through these things. So guess what? If your average topic to transition is 5 to 7 years, that's 5 to 7 years of technology development and company growth. Okay. We have a group now that helps us all in experimentation. Because if you thought contracting was complicated, wait till you try to do an experiment on a Navy platform at sea. Okay. We have a team that works through that both for the technical point of contact that may have never taken their prototype to sea and help you think through that. And there's a website on our website that has all the other things. They even have how to get on a Navy ship and what you should bring in, you know, what's like living down a little hallway with no lights. But okay, don't bring any flip-flops or actually any sandals. They don't allow those, but things, little things like that. We also have another program we're working for those dual use technologies. So if you believe your technology is dual use, you don't know where to go, we've got a team to help you think through that, work through your marketing, and get you ready to go talk to those VCs. You notice though, everything we do starts with the warfighter, and we're happy as can be if you can find other customers as soon as you solved our problem. Okay. iRobot was really, really happy to take care of the Navy's problems and then realized they make more money making vacuum cleaners. And actually they did spin off the military applications to a separate company while they focused on vacuum cleaners because the 3-star retired admiral on their board said that was the thing to do. I'm not talking to him. Okay, we talked about this already. Experimentation cell. Let me know when I'm out of time. I can go forever. This is kind of interesting when companies go, they write, we didn't realize what we had to do, but it's fantastic to know we've got another challenge. You know, there's, I always like it. Congratulations, you got your phase 2. You're behind. Websites, NavySBIR.com. Here's a little inside the baseball. Why is it .com? Because I make changes to it so quickly. If I had .mil, it would take me, well, it would never happen. NavyCiberSearch.com. If you want to know if the Navy is interested in your technology, why not go look and see what we've done for 40 years in SBIR STTR to see if we've been working in this area. If you don't find a topic related to your technology in Navy SBIRSearch.com, which has every award ever made, there's only one of two reasons. I either solved the technical challenge or it's not a priority for the little bit of money I have. This isn't interesting. For $450 million, I can't do everything I want in Navy SBIR, but it's true. They're all there. You can call up that TPOC and ask them how the technology progression is going. Well, isn't that interesting? You hit this little roadblock. That's our niche. Let's continue the conversation. Remember, SBIR is only 3% of their program. They still have 97 cents on the dollar to spend on further research and development. You could easily find yourself getting a non-SBIR contract if you've got the technical solution to their problem. But one of the things they're going to do is SBIR helps building that relationship, because a TPOC normally doesn't like that cold call, and he's not real enamored with the fact that your 2-person company is going to deliver at the scale they need. SBIR gives you the time to develop the technology, develop the relationship, prove yourself, and also find out whether or not you want to work with the Navy. So you got the TPOC, you have a conversation. You also get the company who got the award. How was it working for the Navy? Worst experience of my life, those bastards. Okay. Never again. Or TPOC was great. We had trouble with the budget cycle. The program had to slide. We didn't miss the didn't get there, but we really loved working with them. Kind of good to know. We had a technical challenge. We didn't quite hit the mark. Really? That just happens to be my company's niche. Maybe we should talk. Maybe we should team. You'll be amazed at how many SBIRs are teaming with other small businesses because you're agile, you're innovative, you don't mind trying to do it differently, and Lord knows it's not going to have to go through the bureaucracy I do with the prime. SBIR.gov has a search engine, not nearly as good as ours, but it has a search engine so you can look across the federal government for all those other topics. And the procurement technical assistance folks, where they are in the United States. I think stay in touch. Our quarterly e-newsletter. If you want more thing to clog your inbox, go for it. But we have some really timely information there and to give you some perspective. You also see other companies, success stories, what it took to be a success. It's always an overnight success, years in the making. And in fact, I have a slide about a company that started with us in 2001. And as we speak today, is delivering capabilities used in certain places in Europe, which is awfully exciting. Okay. Transition quarterly newsletter gets into who got phase 3 contracts, how's it working, how companies grew, scaled, and now are delivering capabilities. No, I'd say, so the question was, you said STTR has a higher rate than SBIRs, only in simple math. I only have half as many people proposing, so half the crowd's already gone. The phase 1 to phase 2 transitions are usually very similar. And normally in the Navy, we'll do 2 to 3 phase 1s to transition to 1 or 2 phase 2s. And the same thing happens with SBIR STTR. We found during COVID, it was a little more difficult because almost every research institution, every university in the United States shut down. It's hard to get their work done. But we worked with the companies. We got the no-cost extensions to get people through.
As a Navy civilian, I'm wondering how I can submit a topic that I would like to review proposals for. So they're a Navy civilian, yeah. We want to submit a topic.
So got a Navy civilian who wants to put in a topic. Give me a call, we'll talk. One of the challenges is, so who's your acquisition program? Where is their money? I don't walk around with a checkbook. It's pretty much assigned out to the different syscoms. So not only do you need to do a topic, who's going to want that? Who's going to be your champion? Which of those systems commands are going to say, you know what? This is exactly what we need to be working on. So if in doubt, give me a ring. We can talk and I can point you toward the acquisition command that's going to want you. There's always a battle. I can tell you from before a topic hits the street in a solicitation, there's about a 4 to 6 month process of getting that topic developed, tightened up, then racked and stacked. Because not every topic someone wants to have will make it into the solicitation. There's not enough money for it. It's usually about I'd say about a 75% makes it onto the solicitation.
Hold on. Let's get a mic on you.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got another question here in the room.
Yes. Do you know if the Veteran Administration has an SBIR program?
They do not.
And okay. So
VA
do they
does not.
rely on the Navy, for example, and other orgs to help with their SBIR type needs?
VA doesn't do that much research is one of the reasons they don't have an SBIR STTR. VA is more about, I'm going to buy that commercially available technology. So who has developed something? Was it developed in the government? They're just going to buy it if it's on the shelf. That's pretty much how VA works. Does DoD work with VA especially when it comes to what veterans need? Yes. Okay. Do they do it enough? No. Okay. For instance, DoD goes to war and sailors, soldiers, Marines, airmen go deaf because we're around really loud stuff. Yeah. Guess who doesn't pay for those deaf veterans? DoD. VA does. But so unfortunately, so VA doesn't have a program. If VA needs something, they're going to actually look to see if it's already on the shelf. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
But the VA could give you a directed sole social award because you developed for the DoD and it's sitting on the shelf. And there was another question online.
Just to follow up with your last comment, you said that you can get a sole source award because it was developed on an SBIR from a different organization. Is that true across the government?
Across the federal. So the question was, could you get a phase 3 sole source award with other federal agencies, even though it's not their SBIR STTR topic? Absolutely. Okay, absolutely. We do that quite often. Sometimes, we definitely take over other folks' topics so we can continue the development of phase 2. And if someone else is already procuring it, guess what? In fact, we DoD are working with GSA to set up award vehicles where you can, it's a simple, we're gonna add another task order onto it. So it keeps going, so yes. Long way for saying yes.
And Bob, can I just follow up to one of the other questions was asking about other agencies? One of the presentations this afternoon lists all the agencies with points of contact for everywhere that all the agencies that put out SBIRs, and that information will be in a presentation and made available to you later as well.
Okay, great. That's a good point when you're talking about all the other agencies and Navy and stuff. Guess what? Not everybody, the Navy is not everybody's customer. So you really need to work on finding that alignment. It's not just chasing the buck, it's chasing the place where I've got the best alignment for what I love to do with what they need.